are having a terrific Thursday. It's great to be with you from beautiful Akron, Ohio. The weather here, it's like, I don't know, what, 65 degrees, which is unbelievable. And I hope you folks are doing well. It's really wonderful to be with you today. My name is Brad Maguth, professor in the School of Education at the university. I also have the privilege of serving as the executive director of the H.K. Barker Center for Economic Education. And we have an amazing group of panelists with us today, helping us gain tools and insights in preparing our students to protect themselves in the marketplace as informed consumers. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to share my screen here and call up a few slides for us. That's me. And actually, I want to give a shout out to in this picture that you're seeing. This is our undergraduate student fellow, Malachi Fleming, who works in the Barker Center. We were just down in Fort Lauderdale accepting the nation's Council of the Year Award in economic education. Malachi and I kind of headed down, and what a privilege, what an honor, in order to that we get to do every day in the Center for Economic Education, and work with schools and work with educators, help their students forge a strong financial future. So I am director of the H. Kenneth Barker Center for Economic Education. This picture that you're seeing it's actually a picture of Dean Barker there. An amazing story. This is a child born into poverty in Louisville, Kentucky. And basically he was really upset when as he grew up next to Churchill Downs, and he would see a lot of folks in his community looking for that magic bullet and kind of striking it rich. And as he grew, he really valued, he kind of really understood the important role of education in changing the economic trajectories of individuals and communities. So he's gone on to he went on to be a major advocate for, a major philanthropist for economic education. So the center's name is kind of this bestowing of the memory, the legacy of H. Kenneth Barker, and reminding us that every child in every school can benefit from learning economic knowledge. And not only does it benefit them, benefits their family, it benefits our community, our great state, our country, in our world. And we've been busy here in the Barker Center. So you can see a little bit more information about the work that we do. We have institutes, we have conferences. We took a group of educators to Europe over the summer, over to the Republic of Ireland and the United Kingdom to learn about contemporary economic issues. But a lot of our work has been in financial literacy. And folks, we're really excited for you to be with us. All of our programming is aligned to Ohio Learning Standards, and you'll see that this session's aligned to its learning standards in financial literacy with a focus on informed consumers. And like I referenced before, we have an amazing group of panelists that I'm about to introduce you to. And the format today is I'm going to get out of the way here in a second, and our panelists are going to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their background, their title, the great work that their organization's doing in financial protection. And then we'll have a few moderated questions by the Barker Center. And then we're going to open it up for audience questions along the way. And I would encourage you folks, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat room, your name, where you're from, what you teach. If there are any resources or tools that you're using in the classroom on this topic, feel free to share. But we really do have an amazing group of panelists in front of us. We've got Maris Snell with the Federal Trade Commission, Leslie Jones with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Tanya Stewart-Shaw from the Office of Ohio Consumers Counsel, and then Devin Weckerly from the Better Business Bureau of Akron. So with that said, I'm just going to remind everybody, make sure that they keep their microphones muted, except our panelists. And with that said, Maris, I'll kind of turn the floor over to you so you can introduce yourself.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. I am Maris Snell, and I'm an attorney with the Federal Trade Commission. I am originally from Florida, but now I moved up to Cleveland to work in the FTC's East Central Regional Office, which covers Ohio, Pennsylvania, Delaware, DC, Maryland, Michigan, Virginia, and West Virginia. As the nation's consumer protection agency, the FTC works to stop fraud, deception, and unfair business practices. And we do this in a few different ways. Through enforcement, the FTC does investigations, and when necessary, we sue companies that break the law. For example, I just had a trial in Philadelphia where we sued a telemarketing company that would call people at work and trick them into thinking they were going to get a free sample in the mail, but actually they had been signed up for a newsletter subscription. And if they didn't pay for it, several $100s worth, they would be sent to collections. So if you become aware of something you think may be a scam, you can report it to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov, and we'll circulate these links sometime at the end, so you'll have them available. But we deal with everything from robocallers to social media influencers, and our cases involve false advertising, privacy breaches, and outright scams. We do devote most of our efforts toward targeting either individuals or companies that are scamming larger numbers of people, more than one at least. So if there's just a dispute between you and your neighbor, for example, that's not necessarily something we would make a case out of. However, our website, ftc.gov, does have resources for all types of problems that you have there's some deception or misrepresentation, so identity theft, things like that. We do provide resources as well. Which brings me to another key role of the FTC, which is education and outreach. So we tell people about their rights and also businesses about their responsibilities. So in print and online and in person or virtually over Zoom, we share how to spot and avoid scams, how you can report them, and how sharing what you know about scams with others can help protect you and the people you know. We offer many helpful resources on our various websites. So for example, at www.bulkorder.ftc.gov, we offer a way for you to place free bulk orders for things like pamphlets, bookmarks, newsletters, and other publications with information about scams, privacy, credit, and more. For example, our Heads Up, Stop, Think, Connect booklet helps teach kids about online safety. And at consumer.gov/lesson plans, we also provide free lesson plans on topics like credit, loans, debt, identity theft, and scams. We offer worksheets and other educational tools covering those topics as well, so feel free to check them out and hopefully they can be useful to you. And like I said, we'll circulate the links I mentioned, and with that, I will turn it over.
Thank you, Maris. Appreciate that. And then Leslie, if you're there, welcome.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. My name is Leslie Jones. I work for the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We are the newest federal agency. We were created in 2012 after the financial situation in 2008, 2009. We were created specifically with the goal of taking these variety of offices that were located in various federal agencies and putting them under one umbrella. And then we were given oversight over large financial institutions, special populations, and special programs, things like student loan, payday loans, mortgage loans, auto loans, just various different types of financial instruments, as well as the special populations. We have special offices for students in terms of student loans, so student lending. We have special population office for service members, for older Americans, for financial empowerment, so lower income individuals. And we're able to all work together in order to help these different groups and organizations. My focus as part of the Office of Financial Education that covers the non-special populations is to support people that are trying to teach financial literacy skills to youth. So I'm a youth financial education analyst. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. I got my teaching certification in Bowling Green, and I first taught in Bellefontaine, Ohio, and then taught in Toledo public schools also. But then I migrated to Virginia and eventually found my way to the Bureau through the Department of Defense schools. So I was a classroom educator for 14 years, and that is the lens that I brought to the Bureau. So we have created a wealth of materials for classroom educators to use, including research on how kids learn financial literacy, the building blocks of youth financial capability skill building, as well as resources that you can use. But we knew that it was important to make sure that parents and caregivers also have resources. So one of the things we try to do is encourage teachers to reach out to families, maybe with some conversation starters, things like that, but help the parents also have conversations with the children that they are trying to enlighten and bring up to be wonderfully financially literate adults. So the Bureau covers a variety of things that the FTC doesn't necessarily specifically have in their list, and I think we'll go over some of the additional things later down the road, but that is a quick summary of me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Leslie, for that. We'll be hearing from both Maris and Leslie a little bit more. Tanya Stewart Shaw, if she's with us. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Stewart Shaw, and I'm with the Office of the Ohio Consumers Council. What our agency does is we advocate solely behalf on residential utility customers. So we are a state agency. We were created in 1976 by the Ohio General Assembly, and basically our main focus is to advocate on behalf of residential consumers. We know how important it is for consumers to have access to utilities. Utilities are basically a basic necessity. So what we do is we make sure that the utility companies are offering payment arrangements, making sure that consumers have protection surrounding if there is a situation in the home where there's a medical need, consumers can have access to the utility service and keeping their utility services on. Our goal is to work before the Public Utilities Commission, make sure that if there's a rate case, like if the utility companies do want to increase your rates, we make sure that what the companies are asking for is just and reasonable. Again, our sole purpose is to make sure that people have access to basic utility service. I've been in the utility area for 32 years. Prior to working at the Office of the Ohio Consumers Council, I retired just last year from the Public Utilities Commission, where I actually administered all the low-income energy assistance programs, which include the percentage of income payment plan, the home energy assistance programs, trained the utility company representatives around the state, as well as the Community Action Agency, where people can go to actually apply for assistance. So be hearing a little bit more about some of the programs that we do offer, but my main focus at the Office of the Ohio Consumers Council, I'm a senior outreach and education specialist. We go out, we educate consumers about utilities, how to keep their utilities connected, and provide other resources in that area.
Thank you, Tanya, for that. And then finally, we got Devin from the Better Business Bureau of Akron. Welcome, Devin.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Devin Weckerly. I'm the marketing manager at the Better Business Bureau of Akron. Many of you have probably heard of the Better Business Bureau and tend to think of us as a business reporting agency, and maybe we don't have as much of a relationship with consumers in our service area, but we do have a wide reach of outreach and education that we provide to consumers within our service area. So BBB Our mission is to advance marketplace trust, and we do this by setting standards for that marketplace trust. We encourage and support best practices by engaging and educating consumers and businesses. We celebrate marketplace role models. We call out and address substandard marketplace behavior, and we work to create a community of trustworthy businesses and charities. So the lens that we've really taken is working to reach out to the youth in our community and work to instill those values in them of looking for and interacting with ethical businesses, businesses that do align with our standards for trust in the marketplace. I oversee our community outreach coordinator, who spends his days going out into middle, high school, and college campuses, working with educators in our 6-county service area, which is Summit, Portage, Medina, Richland, Ashland, and Wayne counties. I think I got them all there. There should be 6. So he works with those educators to provide in-class workshops for those students. They go over topics like financial literacy, how to budget and save, plan for your future. We also do talk about scam prevention, how to be a smart consumer, and how to not fall for those scams that are targeting our youth more and more. We recently published a scam study that shows that our 18 to 24-year-olds are becoming more susceptible to scams in our marketplace. So we are really trying to make a concerted effort to reach not only business owners and, our populations 24 and up, but also really start early and make sure that we are fostering this idea of wanting to be an ethical consumer, a smart consumer, and ultimately that will only make the marketplace a safer place to have marketplace interactions, buying, selling, going into businesses, knowing that you are patroning an organization that you can trust, that won't try to scam you or con you out of money or anything like that. So we've really pushed for reaching that younger audience. So I'm very excited that we have the opportunity to speak with educators from across the whole state. We're really excited to be here.
Thank you, Devin, for that. So that's going to kind of pivot us into our moderated discussion. First question we got is for Maris with the Federal Trade Commission. Oh boy, Maris, the holiday season has begun. So that means holiday shopping has begun. And we know that the National Retail Federation forecasts U.S. consumers spending about $950 billion, almost $1 trillion, between November 1st and December 31st. Just kind of wondering, as consumers head out to make purchases this holiday season for loved ones, what are some of the most common consumer scams reported that you're seeing? And is there any advice that you can provide consumers to protect themselves against these deceptive practices?
Yes, great question. There are some scams to look out for during the holidays. And one of the biggest ones that we hear about all year round, but which is going to be especially prevalent during the holidays, is online shopping, and especially online shopping through social media is becoming more and more prevalent. So be careful, especially when you are shopping through advertisements or products you see on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We hear so many complaints because a lot of the time those products that are listed, they don't exist at all. They are just pictures that someone posted online to make it look like they're selling something that you want. And in fact, there is no product they're really selling, and they will just take your money and you will never hear from them again. So some ways you can detect what might be a fake product versus a real product. The safest thing to do is stick with companies or someone that has dealt with and actually bought a product from and gotten it, and it was what they expected to get. But if you are branching out and you see something new and you have to have it, you should do a little research before you go too far and before you spend any money on it. One big thing to be careful about, on Facebook Marketplace, for example, there's a common scam where people ask for a deposit. They say their item's really popular and there's dozens of people who want it. And so if you want them to save it for you and let you buy it, you need to put down a deposit, which is a smaller amount of money, sometimes like $25, $50, and they will let you come pick it up in a few days. But if you don't give a deposit, they'll sell it to someone sooner. That is almost always a scam. I wouldn't give a deposit to anyone online unless you personally know them and you're sure that they are the person and they have what you're trying to buy. But other things as well, if you're looking at doing business with a new company, do the research and see if you can find online reviews, for example, and don't just look at reviews that are on the company's website, because those can also be faked much easier, or they delete the bad reviews. So try to find a third party source, or also just run a Google search and search for the company's name plus scam or complaints or something like that and see what you find. And that should be a good way to see if other people are having issues with the same company, or if you see a ton of great reviews and people got what they wanted, maybe look into it a little bit more and see if it really is a good company. Another related scam to be aware of is after you have been shopping online, I think probably we have all gotten the text messages about you have a delivery from FedEx or USPS, something like that, and there's something wrong with your delivery, and there's usually a link in that text message. Those are practically always a scam. I don't know of any time that USPS has texted me, so it's very, very unlikely that they will ever contact you via text. But if you do get one, do not click on the link in the text message. That is the way that scammers will either get your personal information, which they will sell to third parties, and then they'll be calling you, telemarketing to you constantly for the next 10 years. Or if you give financial information, sometimes they'll say there's a shipping charge that wasn't paid or a sales tax, something like that. They'll try to get your financial information, which then they will use to take more and more money out of your accounts. So don't click the link. If you believe that there is truly a package that you're expecting and there might be a problem, contact the seller and see if they know whoever you bought it from. And if they don't know anything, that's probably a good sign for you. And you can also check with USPS or whoever the text message came from, but don't use the text message to contact them back. You want to Google USPS customer service and call them through a public phone number to ensure you're actually talking to USPS, and they should be able to tell you if there's really an issue with your package, but don't go through the text message. So keep an eye out for those if you're doing any online shopping. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Thanks, Maris. Leslie, it kind of brings me over to you and the work that you're doing around consumer protections, especially in the financial marketplace. I know just so much vulnerability, and that as consumers, there are protections or legal rights that, we need to be aware of. What are some of the most important federal consumer protections, maybe even like around laws, that teachers, educators should know about and share with students? Especially if there's maybe financial products like mortgages or credit cards or auto loans, anything like that.
Thank you for the question. I think I'm going to feature 4 federal consumer protection laws that I think are really important to remember when you're navigating the marketplace. One is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It's regulating your credit reports and making sure that they understand what businesses can and cannot do with their credit information is important. That the Equal Credit Opportunity Act prevents creditors from discriminating against individuals for various reasons. And so doing a deeper dive into that can be beneficial. The Consumer Credit Protection Act protects information collected by consumer reporting agencies such as credit bureaus, the medical information collected by companies, and tenant screening services Those can also be really important laws to make sure you're familiar with. And then the Truth in Lending Act requires lenders to give you specific disclosures about important terms, including APR before you're legally obligated on a loan. I think those are probably 4 of the big ones, but there are many, many more. So I think you pick and choose as you're teaching different content or that students are asking you questions. I do want to highlight a few things. One is a rule of thumb that somebody shared with me sometime in the last couple of months, and I love it, and I'm sharing it wherever I can. And that rule of thumb is to protect the information that you cannot change. So when it comes to your birth date, your place of birth, your parents' names, those kinds of critical pieces of information that you cannot change about yourself, those are the ones that you double down in protecting. And and I want to say that you triage from there. So the difficult it is to change the information, the more you should protect it. So it's just something to think about as you're navigating the world. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act is the one I mentioned, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. And the other thing that I'm going to do a little bit of a twist on here is, because laws are so often changing, I think it might be interesting to introduce students to the rulemaking process. What quite often federal agencies are doing are posting proposed rule changes. So for example, right now, the Bureau's most recent that we announced probably about 4 weeks ago, is that right now we're taking comments from the public on our proposal that financial institutions should allow you to move your financial information to another institution easily, make it portable. Right now, when you close one account and you go to another account, there are so many hoops to jump through, and the information doesn't transfer, and it's just it's difficult, it's awkward, it's designed to make it so that you don't move from financial institution to financial institution, so you're not necessarily searching for the best product for yourself. So we're seeking rulemaking to get comments from consumers and businesses to let us know what's right and what's wrong about what we're proposing, so we can get the final rule right. Well, I just don't think that consumers recognize the fact that they have the chance to weigh in. They know businesses are out paying attorneys to do it, but you can do it. And it might be interesting to do it as a writing assignment in class. So you're doing a little bit of writing, getting them familiar that way, but getting them familiar with the power that they have to impact the rules that they're going to have to live by in the future. Because let's face it, these rules that go into place, these rules that change, they're the ones that that they will be living with and dealing with, because rules don't change quickly and easily, but they can be changed, and they are changed, and letting them know how they can be part of the process, I think can be exciting and can be useful to them. And also, I'd like to mention that Devin is absolutely correct that the most recent survey data out there is that Gen Z and boomers are the most likely to be fall for predatory action. And luckily, because Gen Z doesn't have a lot of money at this point in time, they're not losing much money. But given the fact that we know seniors are losing money because, well, they start to not have the savvy necessarily that you do when you're younger. But the idea that our Gen Z is doing that means that we're doing them a disservice and not giving them the skills that they need to protect themselves. And I know that's why you're here. I know you plan to not do that, but I just wanted to piggyback on what Devin said in terms of the real importance of it. They're losing the money now as well as they might in the future. So this is just incredibly important that we give them these the tips and tricks that they need to survive this. So what I was asked about specifically, the Bureau works on mortgages and auto loans, are two of the industries that we regulate. And with mortgages, what quite often happens, you might have heard that people in the appraisal process, how homes are appraised at the price that the lender wants it to be appraised at, not necessarily at its actual value. There is a lot of discrimination that occurs, and we've noticed that, and we've tried to alert the public that they need to check on things. One of the tools that I'd like to show you later, if I have time, is an interest rate tool that we have, where you're able to explore the interest rates in your area. And I just say it's an incredibly valuable tool, because if you're shopping for a loan and you're somebody's telling you that they can get you a 5% interest right now, and you're like, well, that's a great rate, I want that. So you go to our Explore Interest Rate tool, you type in that you are in Ohio, in this city, and you're looking for a home of this price, and it's a fixed price versus adjustable rate mortgage. That's really all the information you're giving, and the term, the 30 or 15 year, whatever it might be. And it's going to tell you what the average rate is in your area. And that's beneficial, because then all of a sudden you're going, well, if it's 7.5% as the average, that 5% rate seems really low. Why? Or, gee, I'm being offered 10%. That's really high. I know my credit score is good. Why would that be? So let me go and see if I can find something better. So it gives you power. The CFPB really wants to help empower consumers to be able to navigate the financial marketplace with a greater confidence. And we try to provide tools that allow them to do that. And that's one example. And then the last thing I'll end with is just auto loans. An example, my mom got some loans from some major car manufacturers, and they would offer her loan rates that seemed great, and she didn't bother to shop around. They inevitably inflated those loans that they gave her. They added on things like extra protections and other unneeded items to inflate the amount of the loan itself. And then, because they offered her higher interest rates than her credit score indicated, that her ability to repay indicated that she should have gotten, they got more money in repayment between the higher total and the higher interest rate. And she didn't realize that what she should do to go stop that, which is to shop that loan before going to buy the car, keep the loan and the car purchase separate. Those kinds of we have a whole tool that you can go through online that, again, helps you lead you through the process, gives you the questions to ask. Auto loan is probably one of the first places a student or a young person will start entering the financial marketplace in terms of a large purchase. And let's make sure they get it right. Let's make sure they have the lowest totals, as well as the lowest amounts that they're getting, as well as the lowest rates in terms of their loans. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Look forward to talking with you some more.
Thank you, Leslie, for that. I'm feeling empowered. I'm telling you, I was a little bit cusp of despair there, but after your presentation, I'm feeling empowered as a consumer. And then I know, Tanya, you're going to build me up too, because I know winter's coming. It's going to start getting cold here in Northeast Ohio with utilities. And I'm just wondering, with the Ohio Consumers Council, as we approach this frigid winter in Northeast Ohio, folks begin to ramp up their heat. What resources should educators, teachers be aware of when teaching students about statewide protections here in the Buckeye State with their students around accessing reliable utility services?
Thank you for that. The first thing that we would say to any consumer is that if there's an issue with paying the utility bill, the first thing to do obviously would be to reach out to the utility company. I mean, that's the first and foremost. But our office, we do make sure that the utility companies do have, they must offer payment plans. So for any consumer who find themselves in a situation where they're just not able to pay that full bill when it comes in, utility companies are required by law to offer payment plans. So as an example of that, there's typically 3 payment plans that the utility companies will offer. They're standard that have to be offered. But even beyond that, some of the companies, depending, of course, on your past payment history, they will work with you to extend those payments out. One payment plan in particular is called the budget plan. So we recommend that consumers get on a budget. The best time to get on a budget would be basically during the summer months. And what the budget does is it spreads the payments out evenly over either a 9-month or a 12-month period. So especially good for those who are, as we talk about, finances and things like that. Especially the budget payment is especially good for those who are really on a fixed budget and they, are strict about how much, they want to pay each month. If you get on a budget, the budget amount is going to be the same for either a 9-month or a 12-month period. That's an option for folks. We also require the utility companies to offer what's called a 1/9 payment plan. So if there is a situation where there's some past due arrearages already owing on the account, what the utility company will do is spread those arrearages out over a 9-month period and then put the customer on a budget as well. So the customer is paying a 1/9 of their outstanding arrearages plus the current amount will be based on a budget. There's a 1/6 payment plan that the companies will offer. Basically, what the 1/6 payment plan is, it spreads the arrearages out over 6 months, in addition to requiring the consumer to pay their current bill. There's a winter heating season plan. What the winter heating season plan does, it allows consumers to pay 1/3 of their total utility bill when it comes in during the winter, and it will maintain the utility service. So from November 1st through April 15th, consumers who find themselves in situations where that full bill comes in, it's just too high, they can maintain their utility service by paying 1/3 of their account balance during the winter heating season. Also, we have what's called the Special Reconnect Order. Special Reconnect Order is issued annually by the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio under its Special Emergency Order. So what the Special Reconnect Order does is it allows consumers, no matter how much you owe going into the winter months, because a lot of times what happens is people may fall behind in the summer months, especially maybe on their gas bill. And then as we move forward, to the winter months, there's a situation, maybe the gas has gotten disconnected or they're facing termination or something like that. But what the Special Reconnect Order does is allows customers to pay a maximum payment of $175, no matter how much they owe. So they can have a bill for $1,000, they pay $175. That will either reconnect their utility service or maintain it if it hasn't been physically disconnected. And then the customer would get set up on one of those payment plans that I talked about, either the 1/9, the 1/3, or the winter heating season plan. The great thing about the Special Reconnect Order is there is no income guideline. So it's not tied to any income base. Some of the assistance programs, which I'll talk about here in a minute, they're actually tied to an income, household income. But the Special Reconnect Order, anyone can use it regardless of income level, get their utility services restored or get their utility services, avoid disconnection by paying that $175. Then we have what's called the percentage of income payment plan. So what the percentage of income payment plan does, it allows customers who are at or below 175% of the federal poverty guidelines to pay their utilities based upon their household income. So they would pay 5% of their household income to the gas company, 5% to the electric company. If they happen to heat their home with electric, they have an all electric home, then they would pay 10% of their monthly household income or $10, whichever is more, because we have some consumers that if they don't have income, they do not have countable income. Maybe they're waiting on unemployment. Maybe they're waiting on a workers' comp claim or something like that. They can apply for the percentage of income payment plan. Again, if they don't have income, their payment would be $10. So, there's consumer protections in place to help consumers. The one thing that we would suggest is, again, reaching out to the utility company as soon as you know that you're going to have problems paying. It is much, much easier for a consumer to avoid disconnection by making a payment plan. There's a lot of times once the utility service is disconnected, if it gets to that point, the company may want a substantial amount to reconnect the service outside of the winter heating season. So right now, again, we have special reconnect order, which will get folks back on for a payment of $175. We also make sure that if there's a medical need in the home, consumers can get what's called a medical certificate. So say there was an extended hospital stay, consumer comes home and now they're facing disconnection. They could reach out to their physician. The physician could basically contact the utility company, say that there's a medical need in the home, sign what's called a medical certificate that will prevent disconnection or restore the service within 21 days of a disconnection. And then the consumer again can get set up on a payment plan. So we again make sure that there's programs out there. The Home Energy Assistance Program that is actually administered through the local community action agency. So like in the Akron area, as an example, there's Akron Summit Community Action. Consumers can use Akron Summit Community Action. They can go apply for the HEAT program and get that $175 paid if they meet the income guideline. So again, there's resources out there. The most important thing that a consumer can do is contact the utility company if they know that they're having problems paying, if there's going to be a situation where they cannot pay. The other thing that I would like to piggyback on Maris and Leslie, even talking about scams. There's so many consumer scams out there, utility related. So I think it was Leslie that said, protect the information that you can. You want to protect your utility account number by all means. A lot of times you get telemarketers and they may call, and they pretend like they're the utility company and they say, oh, we need to have your account number or you need to go and pay this amount of money. Well, first of all, if they are the utility company, they're already going to have your account number. That's how you know it's a scam. So again, there's all kinds of utility scams out there. A consumer should never give out their utility account number unless they initiate a call to the utility company.
Oh, Tanya, so many amazing resources. Thank you for sharing those. It just my mom, that actually just happened is a few years ago. I remember someone had knocked on her door and asked to see her utility bill, and because they were shopping rates.
Yep.
And we had the conversation. No, Mom, please do not show them the utility bill, please. Thank you for that. So we've got Devin with us from the Better Business Bureau of Akron, and kind of coming back to the Rubber City, Northeast Ohio, thinking about popular consumer complaints we're seeing in the Akron area. What are some popular consumer complaints? And also, so, let's say there is a mistake, something that happens, there's a mistake that's made, a loved one you've fallen for a scam. What are some things that you can do if you or a loved one find yourself in that situation?
Well, so again, we do have quite a new and exciting tool that we've partnered with Amazon and Capital One to re-release this, and it's called BBB Scam Tracker. So this is hosted on our website at bbb.org, and it actually allows consumers to self-report scams that they think they may have encountered but not fallen for. Say, as everyone has mentioned, utility scams. If you get a phone call from someone asking for your electric bill account number, and you know enough to hang up and not give their account number, but you think to yourself, oh, I want to let other people know that phone number is calling people asking for their account numbers. You actually have the ability to go to bbb.org/scam tracker and look up that phone number to see if it's been reported by others in your area. You can filter this by zip code and state. And then if you do happen to fall victim of this and you've already given your personal information, you can report this to BBB Scam Tracker. BBB is not an enforcement agency by any means, but what we do is we often provide information to the FTC and other agencies that do have more weight to throw around when it comes to either enforcement or reporting. We work with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies as things arise. And we provide them with the research and data that is local to our community. So this may not come as a huge surprise, as we've all been talking about common scams that we're seeing. I went ahead and pulled up a report from our scam tracker, and we are seeing very similar trends. We are seeing those utility complaints, people who are getting the door-to-door, as well as phone call and new text message and emails. Scammers are getting really, really good at faking emails and almost duplicating emails down to the logos of your utility company. And the only thing that sets them apart is the email address is wrong, or the formatting is just slightly off. So we are continuing to see these reports of utility scams in our area. We are also seeing a lot of employment scams, especially as we are still in this remote work is still a really nice benefit that many of us have enjoyed since the start of the pandemic. People are taking advantage of vetted and verified job boards like Indeed and LinkedIn to post fake job listings. And oftentimes how they are getting people is that they are saying that they have to purchase their own equipment or their own computers and they will be reimbursed. And they just have to send the money to their new employee account. And then of course, once they send the money, the new job offer disappears and they never hear from them again. As we get into the holiday season, we are seeing a lot of reports of gift card scams, people who are buying and selling fake gift cards that have either already been used or are simply counterfeit that they've made on their own. And then I think it was Maris who also mentioned the online purchasing, both with Facebook Marketplace type consumer to consumer selling and fake websites, fake social media advertisements that you see pop up on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, literally everywhere. You can't get away from them. So we see continued reports and these trends. The employment trends have only continued to rise along with those online purchase scams. So I highly recommend looking at bbb.org scam tracker. You can take a look at what is being reported in your area. And then because we're talking to educators who are often dealing with that younger population, 18 to 24, I did just want to provide some information about the most common scams that are targeting that age demographic. They are being targeted by employment scams. These 18 to 24-year-olds are entering the workforce, whether they're going to college or they're looking for a part-time job or they're entering the workforce after they've graduated. They are prime candidates to fall victim of those scams because there is a very high sense of urgency in that case. They really want the jobs. They are actively seeking those jobs. So they are more likely to ignore red flags. So being educated about what an appropriate job interview looks like, how businesses will gather your personal information once you have been hired, correct HR onboarding processes, really educating young adults on what those next steps are so that they aren't left in the dark once they think they've been hired. They continue to fall victim to online purchase scams. They don't have a lot of money, so this is not a high dollar loss group for them. But they are still falling victim to these fake ads, especially on social media and on Facebook Marketplace, where there's that consumer to consumer interaction. Cryptocurrency is also on the list of scams targeting 18 to 24-year-olds. New cryptocurrency pops up, it seems like every day. We've all heard of Bitcoin and other ones have had their day in the sun. But as the Gen Zs try to keep up with the trends, they're always wanting to try to jump first on those cryptocurrencies, thinking that they'll make it big, like how Bitcoin was when I was in college. My husband daily almost says, I wish I would have bought one Bitcoin when we were sophomores in college. We would have been rich. So there's still that mindset. And ultimately that will probably never be duplicated again. but just to be cautious. And also rental scams. These are the age demographics where they are just starting to maybe move out of their parents' house. They're looking for off-campus housing for universities because on-campus housing may be too expensive in many cases. So we are seeing reports of fake rental listings that require a security deposit. And oftentimes scammers are actually able to get this deposit without these individuals ever seeing the space. So, you know, a security deposit could be first and last month's rent. So you're out up to, I think the median loss for that particular scam is $1,800. So we are seeing a high loss in dollar amount for that particular scam. So once again, just, you know, educating about what it means to search for a rental, what that process looks like, and really just setting them up for success when they are leaving school, whether they're continuing education or entering the workforce right away. Those are the top trends that we're seeing. Excuse me, my throat is very dry as we get into the winter months. And then if you do become a victim of a scam, you know, there are steps that you can take to try to recover from that. You know, the first thing that we recommend, put a lockdown on everything. Leslie talked about protecting that personal information. You want to make sure that you put fraud alerts on your credit report. You can contact one of the 3 credit reporting bureaus, and they will be able to inform the other 2 that you've put a fraud alert. Freezing credit cards. If you suspect that your social security number has been stolen, time is of the essence in that case. So you do want to report that directly. Excuse me. And ultimately, we tend to think that, you know, prevention is the best protection in this case, especially when dealing with a lot of the scams that we see where money is transferred through apps like Cash App or Venmo. These are methods that it is very difficult to recoup any sort of cost because it's not sent through a bank. A lot of the times, though, once you send those off, they are gone. So we also recommend always paying through a secure payment method like PayPal or anything where you can submit a claim against any charges that you would be seeing. And then reporting and contacting any accounts that you believe have been hacked. So whether you think that your credit card has been hacked, your bank, any sort of rewards or employee accounts, reach out to those agencies directly through a verified phone number on their website, and communicate and explain what you think has occurred. And they'll be able to walk you through the specific steps so that you can protect your information, protect your identity, and hopefully protect any money and recoup that in the case that you've lost them. And, you know, all of the agencies that have presented today have information on various steps that you can take. We have those on bbb.org as well. But time is of the essence in any case when you think that you've either been scammed or, you know, you worst case scenario, have your identity stolen. And that's all for me.
Thank you.
Devin,
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry, Brad. I have a quick question. One of my students wants to know, does the scam tracker cover the rental listings as well? You said that a lot of rental scams.
Yes. So you would be able to Scam Tracker, you have the ability to search for key terms. You don't have to just search by zip code or location or anything like that. You can search you could search for a key phrase like a property management company. So if XYZ Rentals, you want to search that on Scam Tracker and you see that that's popped up as a fake listing, then you would be able to check that out as well. So you can basically search by any kind of information that you have based on the scam. Phone number, email, name, contact info, anything. And, you know, we also operate a phone line 9 to 4, Monday through Friday. If you call BBB Akron, a lot of the times, you know, we run through these reports manually, so they're not live. We verify and vet and do all that fun stuff behind the scenes. So anyone is always welcome to call our office to see if we can provide any insight on growing trends or anything like that. Our operations team is fabulous and they can answer pretty much any question that anybody has.
Wonderful. Ivana, I was thinking just kind of maybe pivoting over to audience. If there's any audience questions that emerged, so much conversation about data breaches for folks that may have fallen victim, credit cards and auto loans and mortgages. Tax season's coming up. I know that's a whole nother thing, but Ivana, are there any questions that you're seeing from folks? And I think your students too had some.
Somebody had asked about further explanation on the equal opportunity, but that was covered. And then I saw the one on the scam tracker for the rentals. And that's the only other question that I've seen so far. Oh, I have one. How can we empower students to take action in advocating for consumer protections? Anybody?
I encourage using that rulemaking link, and then also in the activities that I posted. I think we have a couple of activities on like speaking publicly about consumer protections. You pretend you're a columnist and you answer some questions about that people are asking about different problems that they've had in the consumer financial tools. And some of the answers come from FTC information, some of it comes from our information, but those classroom activities might help. And again, the link I sent to the rulemaking things can give them a chance to start seeing that, oh yeah, let's click here and let's post a complaint or post a comment that we have about this rule that somebody's proposing.
Brad, will the chat, will that be recorded also? Because there's a ton of links in there that I have not been able to write them all down. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, come on, Magoo.
That's what I usually do.
Hey, I was gonna say, following the webinar, everyone's gonna get an email with the PowerPoint, and there's a wonderful final slide where all these resources in the chat are going to be included that we'll put together for teachers, and that'll be available. And I see Mr. Adam Motter with his hand up so politely and kindly from the Akron Public Schools. Adam, was there something that you wanted to kind of share? Question, comment?
Yes. First of all, panelists, thank you. This information is absolutely amazing. My utility company has never told me any of that stuff, by the way, Miss Tanya. Just fantastic. Thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today. My question, as we move into thinking for Akron Public School students, and one of them is a car loan. As students get a little older, sometimes they might need some help from their parents, and but they might be helping, they might be doing it on their own, they might be guiding and supporting their parents through the process. And so I have some specific questions, and I would be curious from each panelist the answer. Number one, what is the best way, your preferred advice in terms of them getting their own credit score? And number two, if you could give one or two really like top priority pieces of advice for securing a vehicle in today's market, what would that be? Thank you.
Well, I can answer maybe at least the first your first question in regards to obtaining your appropriate credit score. Really educating people on the fact that you do not have to pay to get a credit score done. We do have 3 credit bureau agencies here in the United States: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. These credit bureaus, you know, have all of your information. They have your credit report. You can, there are links directly to request that. If anyone is trying to charge you money for getting a credit score, run far, far away. That is not something that you should ever spend money on. And that, I don't know, is super talked about. I mean, you know, everyone's heard of like Credit Karma, which is free, but it's also not always super accurate in terms of what your credit actually is. So I know a lot of probably millennials and, you know, people in my age demographic are just relying on app-based information tracking. So you always want to go directly to that source, and they're also different. You know, these 3 credit bureaus do calculate your score based on different metrics. So if you're ever wondering why the 3 credit bureaus are reporting different numbers, it is because they actually have different markers on how they rank your credit score. So don't be alarmed if they are different, but what you want to make sure you look at is actually your credit history, the charges, making sure the information within the report is the same. And I've, as far as vehicles, I'm a long-time leaser, not a purchaser. So as far as personal experience, you know, I have always done my due diligence. My goodness, what a tongue twister. To just do a lot of research beforehand, you know, making sure I tend to gear towards larger, well-known car dealerships when looking for my vehicles. I come from a Toyota family. So there is that kind of brand loyalty there. But my very first car, when I was 16 years old, my mom and I went to a car dealership on the side of the road and bought my very first car, a Ford Contour Sport. And it broke down within 6 months because the entire underside was rusted. So I have had both experiences. So ultimately, knowing what you want in a vehicle, having a good understanding of the market value of whatever vehicle you're trying to purchase, and also doing a check of the business that you're going to buy a car from. Shameless plug for bbb.org. You can always check if a business is accredited or not on BBB. You know, that means that they've passed a background check. You know, the owner has no red flags on their history or anything like that. So that's my 2 cents. I hope I answered your question at least a little bit.
I've got a handful of questions in the chat now. Do you want me to bring those forward, Brad?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay. So one of them is, when dealing with Instagram, oops, I kind of lost that one. Hold on. When dealing with Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc., there are a lot of influencers who do deals with brands to promote their products to followers. If a brand is found to be a scam, can the influencer who is promoting the brand product be held accountable from a legal standpoint?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
The FTC has what are called the endorsement guidelines, and it sets out rules about endorsements, which is what you picture when there's an influencer. They are endorsing the product, but they were paid to do that. So that's a really good question. Yes, they could be held liable in situations where they have endorsed a product. It is very rare that the FTC has actually pursued the influencers because there's a whole variety of reasons, but I think really we want to only do it in cases where the influencer really does know what they're doing and knows that it was wrong. For example, one of the rules, I know everyone is familiar with the basic rule nowadays that you do need to disclose it. So it started off with the hashtag ad. A lot of people do something with, you know, product reviewer or something, some other thing in the caption to indicate they were they're, reviewing for a certain brand, but some of the specific rules you may not know, if you're endorsing a product, you need to actually use the product. So there was a case a long time ago where there were celebrities who were endorsing cigarettes, I think it was, and tobacco. And although the FTC did not actually go after those celebrities in that case, they did find that several of the celebrities who were endorsing the cigarettes did not smoke at all. And you are not allowed to do that. And so nowadays, if we have a little better understanding, the influencer knows what they're supposed to do and they're not doing that disclosure, to say that they are advertising and they were paid to advertise the product. And in fact, they don't actually use the product they're advertising, but they're saying things about it and acting as if they do use it and they know these certain qualities about it. We could go after them. Usually it makes the most sense to go after the company because they are the one that, has been getting most of the money from the profits from the sales that they got from untrue advertising. But we could go after the influencer, and we're certainly looking into that more, especially with like some of the crypto stuff that's going on where there may be a little more involved and there's a lot more money at stake. We're definitely looking at that, and it is possible. So great question.
Okay, I have another one. How are unfair or deceptive business acts or practices towards consumers dealt with?
Well, I can answer from the BBB point of view. As mentioned, we are not an enforcement agency, so we cannot ultimately make businesses say anything. However, there are some actions that we can take to educate consumers about those unethical and unfair business practices. For instance, we have often removed a business's accreditation status once we find out that they are doing, a few no behaviors in the marketplace. We make sure that we display their letter grade rating. There are some Fs on there, people who are businesses that are just failing on all accounts. An indirect consequence of that is that we are now going to be promoting, or not promoting, but encouraging consumers to go towards businesses that are working to promote ethical behavior. Ultimately that will drive more consumers over to other businesses. So they will see the natural consequences of, losing their reputation with organizations like Better Business Bureau. And that is what we can do on our end. And, we are often issuing press releases when we are seeing a number of reports of businesses. I believe at the beginning of the year, we released a report on a propane company that kept changing its name and moving and not delivering services. And there was a whole thing about that. So we are willing and ready and able to educate consumers when we see those trends happening. And ultimately that can result in bankruptcy for the business, loss of revenue, loss of staff, loss of resources and things like that. But the others might be able to speak more on enforcement.
I'll just
Sorry.
I'll just jump in from again from a utility perspective. We know that in Ohio, consumers have the option to choose what we call an alternative energy supplier. Those energy suppliers are certified by the Public Utilities Commission, so they just can't show up in Ohio and start doing business. There is a vetting process through the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, and those companies have to be certified. If it's found that they're out doing deceptive billing practices, such as switching people without their consent, calling them and asking them for their account number, and then switching consumers over, or doing any type of deceptive billing practices, those do go before the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. And what the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio will do is basically decertify that particular supplier so that they cannot do business in the state of Ohio. In addition, levy, a fine or forfeitures to the that particular company. So the Public Utilities Commission is the agency that actually does more of the enforcement. But if we're out in the field and doing outreach and education, and we're hearing this, we can work with the Public Utilities Commission, to let them know what's going on and get a company decertified.
And from the federal government's lens, and I have to be clear, my agency, we call it different silos, the groups that work to regulate and enforce regulation, and you have groups like me that just work to educate. And so I don't spend a lot of time in their wheelhouse. However, what I do know is that we have our consumer complaint database available. We ask for consumers to make complaints. We've handled over 4.2 million complaints since we started in 2012. And we monitor those complaints to see, are there any problems? Like, for example, several years ago when Wells Fargo became a problem, we quickly flagged it because of all of the complaints that were coming in. We were able to do a deep dive looking into it. When people are making complaints, we start with our list of what things can we quickly take care of. Let's reach out to these different financial institutions or financial company providers and see what we can do to help. But if it looks like it's more than that, if it looks like it's something, and when we're doing financial institution examinations, we also sometimes spot things that are also problems. Then that's when we start with we need to bring out the big guns. Sometimes we need to contact the DOJ. We worked with them quite a bit in terms of writing up lawsuits against these companies. Quite often they settle with us. Sometimes they take us to court. Sometimes we take them to court. A variety of things happen. So very much like any other case that would happen, there are a variety of options for settling or coming to restitution. Right now, after some enforcement actions we brought against some payday loan companies, we went to the Supreme Court last month and we presented to them. So it can be very extensive, or it can be very quick and fast. So just so that you know that what you see for regular problems with the court, with what people do, same thing as what we do, but from an enforcement lens.
And I can add just one more thing from the enforcement piece, because it is part of my job at the FTC to investigate and then enforce and go to trial if needed. So just an interesting tidbit that I think most people maybe don't think about, but if you do file a complaint, like many of our agencies can receive, and you could file them on our websites, we do review them. And if there is something we see and, we are seeing a pattern and we do choose to investigate, you could receive a call from us if you left your contact information. So, but just one of the things to, you get a lot of calls from people claiming to be federal agencies, the IRS, and so on. So just a couple of tips to know if it's real. If we call you, we're going to be asking you just about the facts that were in your complaint. We're not going to be pushing for any personal, private information. We may be asking for a little more clarification on what happened to you, but we're not going to push for anything more. So just be cautious, but if you're speaking to a real government agent, they'll be happy to give you their name, contact information, and they will keep it just professional and ask about your situation. They may reach out a couple more times to kind of get the details for their case, but that's just something to be aware of.
Thank you, Maris, for that. Folks, I'm kind of looking at the clock and just being careful. I'm just telling you, I am so impressed with our panelists and all the amazing insights and resources they shared. Just maybe I don't know, a few clicks or claps, but Maris and Leslie and Tanya and Devin, thank you so much for serving as a panelist for tonight's teacher training and focused on consumer protection. Hey, just a few notes in the chat room for those of you that want a personal contact hour certificate, those educators looking for these certificates, needing them, or just even in the portfolio, you can get those through the Barker Center. And then we do have our next workshop scheduled in January 18th on teaching taxes. I know that's everybody's favorite subject. So the early 2024 being tax season, how do you complete those taxes? What should teachers know when teaching students about taxes? There's been some changes. Also, just be on the lookout because the Ohio Educator Licensure Validation and Financial Literacy is going live in early 2024. So those educators looking to pick up that credential and certificate will be coming through the Barker Center. We'll have online pathways, and then we'll have face-to-face trainings. So just sort of a heads up on that. And then prizes, we got 2 giveaways. So basically, we have 2 lucky winners who are going to win the newest edition from the Council for Economic Ed, Financial Fitness for Life, an entire curriculum with a student workbook and with lesson plans, the teacher workbook, over 122 lessons. Isabella Molick that's joined us, and then Ayana Hill were our 2 lucky winners.
Perfect.
Congrats.
Perfect.
Kudos. We'll be in touch with you via email just to get that sent over to you. So that
I have them in class, Brad. If you, I know we're going to meet here soon. You can give them to me. I can hand it to them.
Perfect. All
Both
right.
of them. Yeah.
Simple enough.
Right.
So folks, thank you so much for your participation today. Truly appreciate it. Wishing you a wonderful rest of the year. Happy Thanksgiving, happy holiday season. Be well, take care, and hopefully we see you at a forthcoming teacher training. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's very great.